Hello and welcome to Tabletop 24. I'm Alan.
John. I'm Brian.
And welcome to another episode of We'll Play a Game, where we take a look at games we've recently got to the table with a view of how quickly we get back to the table. With ever-growing collections, time can be precious, so we answer the question of, would we play again? In Viking Raiders, we are playing competing Viking chieftains that are trying to amass a clan, a navy, and some loot. And we're going to be playing towards a set number of victory points that we decide at the beginning of the game. So there are cards in here for 5, 6, 7, or 8, depending on how long or short you want your game. Obviously, with more players, you probably want it a little bit shorter because you're going to be going through a lot more cards. We'll start off with creating a market of 8 cards, and we will all be dealt 6 Viking cards. 8 cards in the market will be one of the 3 types of clan, navy, or loot that we've got to collect, or they may be an ability, which are strong for different purposes. All of them are slightly different in the deck, but they are quite expensive. You can only have one of those out at a time, so if you do get a second, you have to choose which one you would like. We do occasionally have events that will come out, and they basically change the game up. They may mess with your strategy, they may mess with what you're trying to achieve. But there are a couple of those in there for a bit more flavour and a bit more theme. So on our turn, we're going to have start off with these 6 cards. First part of our turn, we are going to be drawing 2 cards straight from the top of the Viking deck and taking those to hand. We then have 2 options. One, we can do a buying phase if we wish. We don't have to. Typically, that's going to be the main way we're going to be leading towards the end of the game. So let's say, for instance, I will choose to play this Gift to the Gods to the discard pile in order to take this bit of jewellery. Or alternatively, on a different turn, I could have paid 1 wood and 2 of any other resource to pretend to be a gold, and I could have taken this. And these will go in my tableau that I'll be building out for the 3 different sort of sections that we can get to. Alternatively, we would then have an action as our second option. Now, I've got a couple of actions in my hand. The first, which is a Harvest Festival, so I could draw 3 cards and essentially get an extra purchase this turn. So actually, I could have played that and done exactly what we've done there. But the main part of this game is going to be raiding. So I've got a winter raid here, and that allows me to raid another player. So for instance, let's say Brian has amassed this great navy fleet, and now ignoring some of the prerequisites that are on there, he's amassed this great navy fleet. I play my raid card. Now on my raid card, that then allows me to target Brian and say, Brian, I'm going to raid your navy. He'll take his 2 navy cards to hand and take enough raid protection as there are cards in his navy. Now he gives them a shuffle, and then I get to pick one. So I'm going to pick this one here, and it was his 3 points of navy. I get to keep that now, and I get to put that in my tableau. So these are going in the discard pile. If I'd have picked a Shield Maiden for raid protection, I wouldn't have got those cards. So obviously, good one for me there. Unfortunately, sorry, Brian, but that pushed me towards my end goal. One thing about the market is that will replenish as soon as we are taking cards out there. Obviously, these were just for show. We did mention prerequisites. In order to take this 3 loot, we would require 2 loot previously to have. And so I could now take that, but I wouldn't have been able to if I'd have only got 1 loot. Or vice versa, if I'd have actually taken this 2 navy from Brian, then the 3 navy was still in the market, I could then have actually picked that up. Play keeps going until finally one player has a minimum of 6 points, for this example, of loot, 6 of navy and 6 of clan. Play proceeds clockwise, each player keeps taking a turn, and if we get to the end of the decks, we do get to give them a shuffle, although there are some special cards that will actually help us do that as well.
So when you open the box for the first time, you'll find that the decks are actually stacked, and it's a teaching aid, which is quite clever. I've not seen it before, but you'll basically put these cards in the market deck, and as they come out, it'll teach you, oh, you've now seen this, or this is a new rule that's coming up, and it guides you through how to play the game. So you don't really need to sit and read all the rules before you start. You can pretty much take it out and just start playing. And I've not seen that before, so
it's a nice touch.
It's quite clever, I thought.
Yeah, it really shows the accessibility of the game, and I think one of the things that get this to the table is sort of that quickness and ease of play. And actually, if you're not into the board gaming hobby deeply, or you don't want to learn masses of rule sets, having that just straight out the box quite useful. It helps to read the rules, but you don't need them, I don't think.
Yeah, and it's obviously targeted towards the newer gamers or families, and it's a really nice touch, I thought.
Yeah, you can gift it quite easily to people who don't game, and they can pick it up for that reason nice and easily.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about this game is the amount of player interaction there is between people for it. The amount of banter, I'm going to raid you, not going to raid you, I've got wood, all those kinds of things, keeping an eye on people's tableaus, people like, he's getting ahead of him, need to raid him, ganging up, loose alliances that are formed, well, I'm going to stick away from you and we'll get hold, I like that. There's a lovely feel to the game for that.
It's fundamentally a take that game, but it's done in a kind of way, and you can't not do that. That's how you win the game. It's taking people's raiding other people.
Yeah, you'll notice, obviously, say for instance, this 3 loot is going to cost me 4 resources. I've essentially played what would be 2 example turns. Yes, I'll have drawn an extra 2 cards, but at the minute I'm quite scarce on the ground. So there will come a point where you don't have enough resources.
Yeah.
And you do have raid cards that you will have to push and just go, well, I'm going to have to raid you. But because everybody's raiding each other, there is no feel bad. It's not like there's only one raid card in the deck, and it does sort of feel bad. But let's say you don't want to feel bad. You've got Berserkers. So one of the special cards in the Viking deck is a Berserker. And that just says, no, sorry, your raid cancels. My Berserker is just going to have out your raid. So which is quite useful. But we have got a couple of extra sort of actions that we've picked up there. It's had a little bit of theme to it, don't they?
So one of the things that I found most interesting and fun about this game is the chaos of it. So some of these cards, like, is it the Midsummer Madness? Yeah. You basically just
collect all cards from all players, shuffle and take 2 cards at random, and then deal the rest clockwise.
So you've got a hand that you're building up, and then you're planning ahead, and then that comes out, and your game has to start again from scratch, and it makes you laugh. It's funny.
Yeah, and there is that little bit of chaos in there, but you've got these thematic cards like Fenrir, which is just going to protect you or allow you to get more in on a raid. Now, I mentioned obviously you shuffle the deck back in, but there is a mechanic for that, Yggdrasil. So when this comes out of the deck, you just literally shuffle the discard back into the deck, including Yggdrasil, which is quite a nice sort of way to refresh the deck. So you're not necessarily seeing every card in the deck. So you might not see Fenrir on the first pass through, and then Yggdrasil comes out. Fenrir actually goes to the top of the deck with a shuffle. So it's quite nice. A little bit different, really. But yeah, you've got it. It is take that, but I think it's probably one of the most friendliest take that, which for the theme of Viking raiding doesn't necessarily seem.
Yeah, it's a quick game.
For the gameplay, I think it needs those chaos cards in it, because the normal game, the standard without those, is quite just a run of the mill. Spend resources to get cards. It needs the spice of the raid. It needs the spice of the random Ragnaroks. It sort of needs that to keep it going, because pretty soon you could lead to a stalemate where you're just playing cards to stop people winning. So it needs that chaos just to either bring it to a crescendo or just change the flavour of the game.
Yeah. And because it is so quick, there is that, again, I'll come back to the feedback, because people do tend to get put off by take that games, but there isn't that feedback because it plays really quickly.
I think that depends on the victory conditions, though. If you go to 8 with 4 or 5 players, I think it might overstay its
yes. I think the recommendation there is if you're playing with 4 or 5, you do only play 5 or 6 points, and I would agree with that. If you're playing 2 or 3, then play to 7 or 8, because you are playing that really, really quick. We had a 2-player game, I think, with 7 points, and it was over in about 20 minutes. It wasn't long at all. But yeah, the events we've obviously mentioned. So we've got these 2 here. We'll go for Ragnarok because obviously theme. As soon as this card appears, all cards are discarded from all players' hands. Abilities are passed to the player on the right. Players get 1 navy, clan, or loot card at random from the left player. Play passes to the next player. Remove this card from the game. So it just messes with everything.
It just messes with everything. I think it'd be quite fun to play as when you're drunk. But there's a few variants again they put in. So they've got chieftains you can pick. This just modifies slightly what you can either buy or increases your chances of being able to be raided. There's a black market where you can draw different sets of cards from the market, or there's the offerings you can make. So there's a few little things in there that make it slightly different. There's a winter clan variant as well, the third player if you're playing with 2 people. So you're not having to raid each other all the time. I don't know they add much to the game. They add little things here and there.
Yeah, I think they added a bit of a level. I almost see that there could quite easily be an expansion that adds a little bit more. To say a little bit more game is possibly a little bit unfair, but add that deeper set of mechanics, because there are a lot of stuff going on in this, and we've mentioned strategy a few times. So if you're really heavy and deterministic, this ain't going to be the game for you.
No.
You are going to have your cards taken off you. Things are going to move around. You've got the luck of the raids, which can really affect the game. Because if I take a 3 Navy and I didn't have any Navy, I don't even have to pay the prerequisites for it. So it's kind of a nice sort of bit there. But I think the one thing that you can't fault this on is it playing to the theme. I mean, so much theme goes through this.
It nicely ties in. The artwork's great. I mean, for it, but Yggdrasil, Ragnarok, the Berserkers, the raid protection, it does all fit quite nicely in there.
Yeah, and the artwork's lovely as well on it. It's just sort of, it's on that semi-realism sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite nice. Again, it fits that theme of just being a light-hearted Viking fest of war with each other.
All you need is a Viking horn full of mead and you're away.
And you're away. So before we get on to our final thoughts on this, just obviously to say we did catch up with Morton at UKGE, so check that video out there. Also, this game was kindly provided by them at the expo, so obviously take that with a pinch of salt as you will as we go into this. But obviously we always do our reviews up front and regardless of where the copies have come from. But thank you, Morton, for providing that. So John, would you play again?
I think I would not. Again, it sits between again and hesitate. It sits in that sort of like box that goes in your bag alongside Port Royale, Arboretum, Songbirds, that you just want a bit of a filler, start or end of an evening, and it fits in that kind of category for me. And I think there's other games that I will put in my bag over it. But that's not to say if somebody else had it and it was their turn to choose a game, I'll certainly play it.
Right.
I think very similar. I mean, I enjoyed playing it. It was fun. I played it 3 or 4 times. I've got other games very similar, like Port Royale, and given the choice, I might go for one of those instead. There's just something. It's a bit too much of a setup needed for a quick game. Not long enough for a long game for me. So I'd hesitate to play again.
So for me, it's we'll play again. I think I like the theme. I like that it's take that without being offensively take that. And I don't have things like Port Royale, Songbirds in my collection. I do have filler games in my collection, but I think maybe I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle there. But it's a nice little game, and I think this would really sing at corner of a party type thing, having a drink, family gatherings, that type of thing, and mum gets out and raids everybody's Viking villages, and Pap or Gran gets out and absolutely annihilates people. I think that it will sing in that. It'll be those memory moments of, do you remember when Ragnarok came out and it caused me to win the game? And I think it will probably stick in people's minds for that. But all that being said, if you haven't done so already, please check out our other videos on the channel, give us a like and a subscribe, and we will catch you next time. Take care.
Bye.